A life on the raging canal, a home on its muddy deep, where through summer, spring, and fall the frogs their vigils keep.
Art Walks on Water is a project that was developed after the Art and Aesthetics Committee of the Walk Bike Brockport Action Group placed a piece of community art down by the Welcome Center on the bank of the Erie Canal. I had this idea that if we could do it, maybe every port along the canal could also do this. And I started working on some sort of a plan to get the information out so that I could see what kind of feedback I would get on a project such as this. I would really like to see like a string of pearls going along the canal. Each pearl would be one of the ports, and each port would then provide a piece of art, a piece of community art that would go near the canal base. Now, I'm finding out that a lot of the canal ports and waterfronts along the Erie Canal and some of the lakes that connect to the Erie Canal have even more community art than Brockport has. And I'm finding that people are very interested in having an art walk, draw the people in with their piece of art on the canal or the waterfront, and get them into their communities to show off all of the art that they have there. Many, many communities have more art than Brockport. When we looked at our own community, we found that we had 12 to 15 pieces that are relatively near the canal, and people could take an art walk. We're working on an audio tape that a person could pick up at the Welcome Center and take a tour throughout our village, viewing everything from Tiffany windows to sculpture to Victorian street signs to a historical painting of an ivory soap ad on one of our brick buildings. This project could really be an uplifting thing for the Canal Corporation of New York State, and in the long run I would like to have it taken over by the state as a project that would be similar to our I Love New York project. Art Walks on Water was an idea that I came up with after we had our dedication ceremony. I thought we had such huge support from our community in their turnout for our installation, for our dedication, that other communities might feel the same way. And because the canal offers such an interesting format as one of the longest greenways in the United States, I thought, wow, we could establish the longest art gallery, maybe the longest art gallery in the world. And here is this little tiny community of near 8,000, a little more than 8,000, coming up with an idea that could get world recognition ultimately if we can really, really pull this off. I'm hoping that other communities will be as excited about it as we are, and then add their pearl to our strand, and we're going to get this 524-mile art gallery in our backyard. Right now, the Canal Corporation of New York State is very, very interested in partnering with communities. And they have offered assistance to many of us so that we can encourage walking and biking and bringing people into these communities. The art part that we're doing is frosting on the cake. In addition to bringing people into the port, it will also bring people into the towns and villages so that they can see historical things, museums, galleries, pieces of art that are already in place. A piece of art might mean Tiffany window. It might be a kiosk, it might be a school project or a mural. It will definitely be a draw for the community to get people out of their boats, off their bikes, or to walk into their areas. And it seems to me that all of these port towns are relatively close to these areas. For example, in Brockport, we have found that the development of a farm market on Sundays is a great draw for visitors and residents. And if you were coming down the canal and you had docked here on a Sunday, you would be able to participate in this regional experience, which seems to be making a great change in our village because it's become a very social activity, not only for buying fruit and vegetables and baked goods, but people look forward to sitting down with a cup of tea and talking with their neighbors. I think it's really made a difference in bringing our community together. And the more participation there is in all of these towns and villages, the more community-minded people are going to be. One thing that's very important when you're doing community and public art is to have a relationship with your administration. We have found in Brockport that in order to have pieces of community art installed, we need the Department of Public Works. And whether they are interested in the cultural aspect of it or not, I have to say, when we installed our first piece of community art, the DPW was right there. And whether they were interested personally in the project or not, they were totally professional. They helped us a great deal, and they treated our sculpture with respect. We tried to make sure that we gave them plenty of credit and signs of appreciation so that they would want to continue to work with us. We have found that, on the other hand, our village government seems to be separated from our concepts regarding the addition of community art. If they think that they have to put any money into it, they don't seem to be interested. And fortunately, our committee, this Art and Aesthetics Committee, is not discouraged by this. If we can't have the assistance of our Department of Public Works or the village, we will figure out how to raise more money and continue on with all of our efforts. Nothing has discouraged us to this point. We are making bigger and better plans, and we hope to continue doing this throughout the village. And we are also fortunate, even though we have a little village that's under 9,000 people, we have a state university college here. And that has a little over 11,000 students, sometimes a little more than that. But we have found that the college, which hosts many of these pieces of art that we want to put in our artwork, they're very excited about what we're doing. Their approach to us is support the whole way. And if we find that we have difficulty in the future putting pieces of art within the village per se, we can go to the college. We can go to other communities. There are so many places that are dying to accept what we do. We're pretty amazed that they only view it financially. And here we have presented in the past 3 years nearly $100,000 worth of things such as Victorian benches and community art, and a gateway billboard to this community prepared by one of our committee members. We have, interestingly enough, done more work for the village of Brockport than has been done in a long time. And ironically, most of us live in the town of Sweden and not within the village of Brockport. And that's been a little bone of contention because we seem to be a rather strong-minded group of people, and we push forward. And I think sometimes it's difficult for government to know how to relate to us because we can continue to do what our goals are and develop more public art with or without them. Obviously, we want to do it with them, but we have found that we are not going to be discouraged regardless of their position on public art. The Art and Aesthetics Committee is a subcommittee of the Walk Bike Brockport Action Group. And this came about after a presentation made by a young man named Mark Fenton, who has a PBS show, which is Public Broadcasting System, called America's Walking. He is the foremost expert on walking and biking in all of America, and he happens to be from our town. When he came and presented, our community became very interested. At least a core group of people, maybe 15 people, became very interested in this concept, and we formed a group called the Walk Bike Brockport Action Group. An action group it is. It's divided into several committees. We are interested in goat trails. We are interested in a Santa train at Christmas time to take people on tours throughout the area. We have a tour to Brockport, which is a bicycle activity where people go through Brockport and they can walk or bike, picking up information from different shops to learn more about the community and getting to know each other. It's a great initiation to the village of Brockport. And we have the Art and Aesthetics Committee. We have found that the group is interested in health and fitness, and the Art and Aesthetics Committee is interested in providing destinations for these people who are walking and biking and boating. Our first project was called Sitting Pretty. We wanted to place Victorian benches throughout the village so that these walkers and bikers would have a place to rest after they practiced all their health and fitness exercises. And what happened is people thought no one would do this. The benches were $953 a piece, and we ended up placing 19 of these benches with plaques on each bench that memorialized or honored a friend or family member. In some cases, they had groups of people that got together, but in any case, we have gorgeous Victorian benches throughout our village and near our canal. Once we accomplish that, and we still continue to do this, we are still going to do more benches, then we thought we would get started on our first piece of community art. And the easiest way to raise money, based on my experience, was to hold an auction. I had participated in one of these auctions in Chautauqua, New York, and when I found that they made $28,000 in 2 hours, and it was, I must say, their 8th or 9th year, so they had established quite a following, I said, we can do that. So when I got back to Brockport, we contacted people, artists, we advertised, we published as much as we could about this auction, and we received over 92 pieces of art, far more than we ever dreamed of. And an additional thing that was very interesting is there's a huge gallery in Rochester called Artisan Works. And once this person, Louis Perticone, who has this gallery, heard about us, he was willing to work with us and assisted us by giving us 23 paintings to sell in our auction. We had to provide a minimal amount of money to him, and we could make as much money as we could on these pieces. So our first auction, we made $14,000, and we had to pay a certain amount to Louis, but we had enough to commission a local artist who is nationally known, Bill Stewart. Normally he works in clay, but we commissioned him to do a steel piece that is 18 feet high, and he donated all of his time. He donated his design working time, and he donated all the time he spent finishing this piece. Another artist, a metalsmith named Jeff Jubinville, he works with one of the most prominent metalsmiths in the world, and he also donated his time. What we had to pay for it was the steel and the fabrication of the piece. But everything that was done by Bill Stewart and Jeff Jubinville was donated. This is a huge donation. As it stands, this sculpture now, called Howdy, is valued at $50,000. We we ended up, we gave Bill a $12,000 commission. The price of steel went up and we had to pay $2,000 more. So we had $14,000 into it. But here we are with a $50,000 piece of sculpture. Once we did that and met with great success with neighbors and community, we went on and tried to develop a gateway to Brockport. Our gateway to Brockport was a billboard. And I must say that our committee is very talented. We have a graphic artist, we have many artists, and they kick in. They just come to the plate when something has to be done. Helen Smagorinsky, one of our committee members, did a painting of the Brockport, a Victorian village on the Erie Canal. What we did was we worked with some other friends in Brockport and had this developed into a billboard sign. The committee, including my husband, not the committee, the community, including my husband, prepared the billboard. It already existed, and what they had to do was replace plywood and paint and get it ready for us. And now that cost us about $600 or $700, but again, that was funds that we raised. That is now in existence, and we thought we could make more money on it, so we created a giclée print of the painting, and we have sold many, making over $2,000 on these prints. As if that wasn't enough, at our first auction, we sold mugs that said Stone Soup on them, designed by our graphic designer committee member, Norm Frisch. And we also were given a piece of sculpture by Bill Stewart that we held a raffle on. Even though we didn't make enormous funds for our first auction, we really were very successful and were able to do something way beyond what we earned. After the billboard, getting back to the billboard, we decided to go for our second piece of community art, and we had Stone Soup 05. We then earned enough money through our auction and through another raffle where we had a local artist, Diane Hickerson. She donated a framed print called Promise of Spring. And at this time, she is a nationally recognized person in the watercolor community who has done more work to help us in the preparation of our giclée prints that we sell. She mounts them and wraps them and helps us market them in a very nice fashion. And her husband has done numerous press releases to give us a lot of publicity in our area and in Rochester. Now we are in the process of getting a Remembrance Park, a small park within a neighborhood in the village, ready to place our second piece of sculpture. And it is a metal sculpture by Jennifer Hecker, who is an art instructor at the SUNY College of Brockport. Her piece is going to be outstanding. It's metal, and she also, She has been a very prominent artist locally, and we're happy to have her. This piece we are putting $10,000 into, and it's worth more than $25,000. This piece will look like a small steel house, and on this house you will see carved areas that include buildings from the college, trees. She's very concerned about the canal and the environment, and she's tried to include this in this metal piece that you will be able to walk through. A number of community members are going to have to help dismantle what is already in this park, which is a circular garden, and we have to replant 1,000 bulbs and replace a lot of stonework to make it fit into this park. And I must say, we were running into trouble getting permission to use this park at the last minute, and what we did about that was consulted all of the neighbors to see how they felt about the park, and we got quotes from them. And then we invited our entire village board and our mayor to come and see the sculpture that was in progress at the college. Everyone went to see that was on the village board except for the mayor. And when they got there, they would make comments like, "Do you live in the village?" And the artist does not. And so they says, "Well, why don't you have the town do it or put it at the college?" Well, that didn't discourage us. We thought the comments were not what we were looking for, but instead we went to a village board member who is supportive of the arts, and she made a proposal. And in that proposal, she read some of the quotations from the neighbors, and they were totally flattering to the project and feel that it will be uplifting to their neighborhood. So we circumvented the system, and the village board passed this unanimously because politically they thought it would not be a very good move not to support something that so many people within their territory approved of. The sculpture that we have placed here by the Erie Canal is named Howdy. It's 18 feet high and it's made of steel. It's a very whimsical sculpture, and as you might expect, not everyone is interested in this funky form of art. Some people want a more Victorian look, but all in all, we have found that most of the people really appreciate this. Bill put in the sculpture, he put a heart, he put hands, and his goal was to make people feel welcome when they come to Brockport. And one of his quotes is he hopes they'll just get a laugh out of Howdy and remember Brockport for it and feel that they were welcome to this community. He's got waves and boats and ducks, which obviously the children and viewers enjoy taking in. Howdy is a very exciting figure for us by the canal, and we're hoping that people who view it feel the same way. This bench that I'm sitting on is an example of our first Sitting Pretty project. As you can see, there is a memorial plaque on here, and many people sit on these benches. We have benches on the corners of a cross section in Brockport, and in the summer you will frequently see them filled with people, children, adults, bikers, walkers, and they especially use the benches during our Sunday farm markets. Once you get off your bench, there are a lot of things that you can see in Brockport, and one of the things that we're working on currently is called an art walk. This art walk will take people throughout the village and will show them what we have in our community. We have found that we have 12 to 15 pieces that are in place that no one has been paying attention to collectively. So we're trying to organize them so that people can pick up an audio tape or pick up a map and take a tour through our village viewing all of these pieces of art.
A life on the raging canal, a home on its muddy deep, where through summer, spring, and fall the frogs their vigils keep. Like a fish on the hook I pine, on this dull, unchanging shore. Oh, give me the packet line and the muddy canal's dull roar. A life on the raging canal, a home on its muddy deep, where through summer, spring, and fall the frogs their vigils keep.